Today, on July 26, 2021, both my mom and I had hearings before the Board of Revision. And what happens when their own example proves my point about my home valuation, says all you need to know about how corrupt or incompetent this body and the property valuation function is within Clermont County government.
Okay, Mr. Brown, would you put this case on the record, please?
Yes, ma'am. Case 2020-548. Property owner Christopher and Belinda Hicks filed the original complaint. The parcel number is 413214A 329 dot. Property owner's opinion of value is $258,218. Auditor's current valuation is $267,500.
What did you say, Mike?
No,
You said 258, it's 257.
I'm sorry, 257,218, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to swear in anybody who's not an attorney that will be giving testimony. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I also wanted for the record to say that I think there's supposed to be an attorney present when you're taking testimony, but is Mr. Schreiber on? Last time I was here, Mr. Schreiber was on, at least there was an attorney witnessing the meeting.
No, there's
Okay.
no attorney on.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Hicks, you filed this complaint. Would you like to proceed?
Well, on my street, which is Woodward Court, as I spelled out in the supporting document to the complaint, which you should all have. The only, if you look at I gave 3 scenarios on my house. My mom's house, which will come up in the next hearing, is very similar. We seem to uniquely be getting more significant or any increases compared to anybody else on our street. There was no improvements made to my house, and you'll hear from my mom, there was no improvements made to her house. But the oddity is, if I look at the scenarios I presented for purposes of my complaint, was that if I look at all homes on the street, excluding mine, the value fell 1.2%, whereas mine had an increase of 2.3%. If I look at all homes excluding just mine and my mom's house, which is on the same street, the values fell by 1.7%. And if I take out ranch, there's 2 ranch houses on our street, my mom's being one and another one near our house. If I remove those 2 ranch houses in mine, the values fell by 1.9%. So what I did was I averaged those together to come up with a decrease of value of my house of $10,282 to be consistent with what the valuation changes were across the street, across our whole street. I'm not aware of on our street, there may have been some remodeling or improvements made to some houses, but I think it's pretty important to note that other than my mom's house and my house, mine went up 2.3%, my mom's went up 5.3%. No other house I think if I take those out, more than half of the houses went down in value. The largest increase in value of any house was 1%, if I'm reading this right. But the ones that went up by some minuscule amounts, like 0.3, 0.5, 0.2%. So I think that our valuation is unfair. It's not just compared to what happened on our street with valuations. And I frankly question the ethics of the valuation because it seems that on our street, I feel that we've been singled out for an increase that's not justified by any improvement or anything else that's happened, not consistent with other home values. And even worse, I feel like my mom has been singled out with a very significant increase compared to any other house on our street. All of the houses were built by Dries. They were all built in the same time period. Our house was actually built 6 years later than the other houses because it's on a panhandle lot, so it's a little bit newer than the other houses, but not much. Our house was from 1996. Most of the houses are from 1989 or 1990. So again, I think that there's no support for an increase in valuation that seems to be targeting in our street my mom and myself, both of which had no improvements, in what seems to be totally inconsistent, totally punitive. And again, I'm concerned with the ethics of it and feel that we might be being singled out for abuse in the valuations of our properties.
Mr. Brown, do you have information on this case for the board?
Yes, ma'am, if you pull up the comps for me. We reviewed this neighborhood sales. I'd just like to point out first of all to the board that the property owner's neighborhood consists of more than just his street. There are a total of 273 parcels in this neighborhood as we've defined it. Those are for the entire subdivision plus a couple other similar subdivisions like this that we combined in this reappraisal. So of this, we found 5 sales that we believe were comparable to this property. They were all in this subdivision. Same grade of homes, roughly the same square footage. Year builds were 1992 through 1995, so they matched the properties. So those 5 sales, when we adjust those to the subject here, the adjusted sale prices had a range of a low of $281,700 to a high of $306,300, with the median being $298,800. Obviously, we shoot for the median. We're not trying to go for the high end or the low end. The current property's current valuation is $267,500. I will note that the overall neighborhood took an increase. When I look at all 273 parcels, the total increase for this reappraisal was 8.5% for the neighborhood. So without any evidence being presented as to this property's market value or what it might sell for on the open market, and based on the comps that we've found, I would recommend to the board that we make no change to the valuation.
Let me know when I may respond to what you
Sure.
said.
Yeah, you may.
So I have not been provided with this information, so I believe that, aren't we supposed to not be introducing information that wasn't part of the complaint, that hasn't been provided to the parties? So I have not been provided a copy of this information that you put, which is a very detailed looking spreadsheet. So I want to protest that I have not had a chance to review this information. Secondly, the comps, maybe Mr. Brown I could pause here, but I want to respond more, but of the addresses of the comps, I'm not quite sure that I see on there what the addresses of the comps were. Okay, they scrolled up so I can see it. So there's my house is the first one, so the comps are what?
The addresses are 4222 Brandon Moore. Let me see, I can read
452
that part.
Woodwick.
You
There
had
are
2 others
4
on Brandon Moore.
and 1's on Woodwick.
So having not been able to analyze this document since I wasn't provided it, I will point out that 452 Woodwick Court, which is one of the comps that you have, according to my records from your valuation, the value of that house went down by 3%. So it's quite peculiar that you're using comps that include one of the houses on my street where unless I made an error in my table, the value of the house went down by 3%.
These comps, none of these comps are on Woodwick.
1 is.
452 Woodwick.
One is.
The third one.
I'm sorry.
Column,
Sorry,
you're right, number 2 is
Sorry.
452 Woodwick. So in your frankly dumb explanation of the neighborhood and other neighborhoods, Mr. Brown, doesn't that explain why uniquely on Woodwick Court, where I live, all the houses would go down in value 1.7%, I gave different stats, 1.2% excluding my house, 1.7% excluding just my and my mom's house, 1.9% excluding the ranch houses. But you're, throwing this chart up here that I've not been provided in advance, does nothing then to explain why all these other houses went down or stayed flat in value, including one that you used as a comp. So again, just because there's silence, I would say that again, I've presented absolutely clear evidence that either I was targeted in some way on our street for an increase in my mom, or all of my other neighbors were somehow targeted uniquely for flat valuations or decreasing valuations on a street, on one street. So you can throw out, I don't know where, I don't have anything that could support this number of the overall neighborhood going up 8.5%, but then that would seem to me to point out some serious issue with the valuations if one street in the neighborhood, for reasons maybe somebody could explain here, or Mr. Brown could explain why one street would have a decrease in value in a neighborhood in which the overall neighborhood went up 8.5%. And think about how that amplifies if the street is included in the neighborhood and the street went down in value. Think of how much the value must have gone up in our neighborhood if I excluded our street where the value went down. Could you explain that, Mr. Brown, how this one street uniquely has a decreasing value in a neighborhood that you said went up by 8.5%?
My only comment would be that in any reappraisal, that each parcel is looked at individually. It's not looked at as a whole, and you're gonna have some that increase and some that decrease. That's just the nature of
So on the one
reappraisal.
hand, you want to say that mine should stay the same because of some comps, including a comp where the value went down by 3%. And then you just said, you know, some are going to go up and some are going to go down. You're selectively using some examples here that are going to make any sense, because one of your examples is a house that went down in value on my street. So your own argument makes no sense. So per my records, unless I made a mistake, 452 Woodward Quarter, you made a mistake up there, had a valuation in 2020 of 213, 2019, 219,600, a decrease of 6,600 minus 3%. Now I might have made a mistake, but I believe I pulled the records off of, at the time of this filing, I believe I pulled the records, and I apologize if I made any mistakes in the numbers, but I hopefully didn't. You say, what does your system show right now the valuation is on 452 Woodward Court?
452 Woodwood. $213,000.
So my numbers are correct. The value of that house went down by 3%. And you're using it as a comp to explain why my house should go up in value. So I again come back to that my house value should be 10,282 less than what it is right now. If then you want to go back and try to figure out why your valuations are so messed up, but right now I'm being, I think, punitively hit with an increase on a street where they overall decreased. And I think that your numbers, Mr. Brown, are irresponsible in that you didn't even bother to check what the comps were that you put up on the screen to see that just by luck, one of the comps was on my exhibit that I provided and actually went down in value by 3%.
Anything further you'd like to add?
Nope.
I'll just point out to the board, these comps were not used to evaluate this property at the time of the reappraisal. This was a review to check to see how our value sits in relation to this complaint. So,
Mr. Brown, it's too little too late. You put up numbers here that you can't, that don't even make sense for
Mr.
what you
Hicks, would you
claim.
please address the board?
Board, Mr. Brown is too little too late. He put up numbers that I had not seen. I can't vet of 5 houses, and one of the numbers he put up is a perfect example of exactly what I'm claiming. So again, anything other than revaluing my house to be consistent with the other houses on the street is frankly wrong.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members?
Just with, as you pointed out, the reader presented the different percentages and as different homes were evaluated, you know, so, but my question of you is, have you had an appraisal, either by an appraiser or a realtor to determine whether the value is correct or in with that market, because the state charges us with putting it at, to determine a market value?
No, I did not, but again, I just want to keep re-echoing that the valuation of my house, appraisal regardless, makes no sense to the valuations of the other houses on the street. It seems that I'm being targeted for an increase, my mom is being targeted for almost double the increase. I believe that has a lot more to do with the culture in this county than it has to do with any sort of fair appraisal.
As we pointed out, there's the neighborhood also, not just the street. You're looking at the street, we're talking about neighborhoods. Just wanted to clarify.
And I just want to clarify then that you're admitting that one street within a neighborhood, the valuations make absolutely no sense to the whole neighborhood. So you're admitting, Ms. Fraley, to some flaw in your valuation system.
That's not what I
where for
said, we're
some
looking at
reason-
neighborhood wide.
Well, why would one street in a neighborhood that's consistent with all the other streets have a declining value when the overall neighborhood had an 8.5% increase per Mr. Brown, if that number is correct? When the houses were all built the same, they're all the same basic size and topology. You'll find in our neighborhood as they go, the upper part was built a little bit later and they're a little bit more expensive houses, but they're all within a range of value that's very consistent, all built by the same builder, except I believe one, there was a lot that was not developed and some person way up in the neighborhood had some other builder. But they're all Dries houses built by the same people, all very consistent floor plans and topologies.
If there's no further information, questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we follow the recommendation of no change on this property.
I agree with that, and I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Mr. Brown?
Within a week to 10 days, you get certified mail notification, and you feel right to spell out in that letter.